Hello, everyone, and welcome to my capstone presentation for the summer 2020 internship course. My name is Adam Campbell. I am a community health student at Governor State University, and today I'm going to be talking about the utilization of education programs to reduce the health effects of the coronavirus and quarantine lifestyle in children ages 18 and younger. Before we move on to today's discussion, I would like to briefly talk about the coronavirus and some of the background information that I thought was helpful when talking about this topic. So, COVID 19 or SARS CoV 2 is a new form of the coronavirus. Yes, there are other forms of the coronavirus, each having a similar respiratory illness of that sort. But with COVID 19, there are a few other symptoms that can easily distinguish it from others. These symptoms include all and or the following of dry coughing, headaches, shortness or difficulties breathing, fevers or chills, muscle and throat soreness and aching, extreme fatigue, loss of senses such as a taste or smell, diarrhea, and vomiting. These are huge signs of potentially coming into contact with COVID 19. With the coronavirus, there are a few different pathways of transmission. The first being a direct contact with an infected person. They either cough or sneeze on you, and those droplets get into your respiratory system and infect you that way. Other forms of transmission include an indirect contact of these droplets on objects such as chairs, tables, or anything horizontal that it may be able to live on. Symptoms typically start showing up around 5 days after coming into contact with the virus, and symptoms tend to last for a total of 2 weeks or 14 days. At this very moment, there are no vaccines being patented or mass produced, but people are still researching. They are trying to get a vaccine out there before the end of 2020. We are still waiting, and hopefully we'll get that very soon. In the meantime, though, while we wait for that vaccine, all preventative measures that major health organizations recommend to people, we can still perform easily, such as wearing a mask everywhere you go, especially in huge populations, utilizing the social distancing method by staying at least 6 feet apart from every person you're encountering, and most importantly, socially isolating yourself if need be. Now that we address some of the background information of the coronavirus, we can all agree that this virus has been a huge topic of discussion all 2020, and wherever we may go, this virus tends to linger. Having dealt with the uncertainty of becoming exposed and potentially infected with the coronavirus, many businesses were forced to shut down for the majority of the spring and the early stages of the summer, and have now been hurt as a product of this pandemic. And it's safe to say that our way of life has changed severely and will change for the next few years. And it seems as though as the world gets back to normal, as their rates start to decline, the United States just seems to keep rising in case numbers each and every day. Which leads me to the discussion of children during the coronavirus. See, the interesting thing is, children have a lower chance of becoming infected with coronavirus and are actually at less of a risk factor of coming into contact with it. The CDC has reported that 2% of all national cases of the coronavirus in the United States stem from children ages 18 years old or younger. And this is an amazing thing to see because depending on what your stance is on the coronavirus, it seems as though parents are doing their part to keep kids away from the exposure of the coronavirus and keeping them home at all costs. Parents also seem to be doing a great job when trying to keep their kids healthy by introducing new things such as exercising outside within COVID guidelines, social interaction via Zoom, video gaming consoles, and social media platforms of that nature, and also checking up on their kids to see if they have any mental health ailments, especially dealing with staying at home for such a long period of time. Now, the basis of knowledge for this program stems from both the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization making articles for health maintenance and taking that to a new extreme during this unprecedented time. Both organizations go out of their way to designate certain articles to help children or people that are in need of exercise, social interaction, and screening of mental health awareness. These articles also do an amazing job because they both are detailed enough for kids so that they maintain an active and healthy lifestyle, and they are also able to obtain these routines very easily and do them on a frequent basis. These routines seem to also try and normalize the quarantine lifestyle for kids because, unfortunately, we have no clue how long this is going to last for. So giving these kids the routines of certain exercises that they can do and certain mental health procedures that they can do and social interaction measures that they can take, this is a good thing to try and normalize these unprecedented times as well. Now, even though I do like that these articles are easily obtainable by both the parent and the child, I feel like this simplicity is unrealistic. Not all kids are going to be able to equally perform these routines due to certain restrictions based on demographic, socioeconomic status, and other disparities of that nature. To add to this, I feel as though certain mental, physical, and learning disabilities also tend to hinder one's ability to perform these routines on a frequent basis and could lead to certain health issues, especially while maintaining a quarantined lifestyle. Furthermore, I feel that the assumption that all children are capable of performing this routine also has some issues with it because, as I was saying, any given health ailment such as depression and anxiety, being obese, or even having a reading disorder such as dyslexia can hinder that child from trying to perform any type of exercise or even try to remotely learn how to do these exercises. On top of all of this, I feel as though the quarantine lifestyle affects children very differently. Some may take it in a more positive manner and treat it as an extended vacation where they can do certain things like play outside, get certain exercises done, and just have a happier time, as opposed to certain children that are forced to stay at home, not able to exercise frequently or even go outside, and may have certain negative thoughts because they cannot interact with their friends. Even the concept of physical education courses is a really good thing for certain students because for some, this is the only means of exercise for that child for any given day. This may also be a time where students can interact with each other in a more positive and more fun manner. And now that physical education courses are being shut down due to remote learning, some kids may have just lost their exercise for that given day, or they may have lost some of that social interaction that they get with other students. Losing these two things from a physical education course is very alarming to this program because kids, when inactive, may not want to get up and get moving again after such a long period of staying at home or not exercising for that period of time. And also, without that social interaction, children may tend to have more negative thoughts, feelings of being alone, things of that nature, and may not want to be counseled by someone over their feelings. Moreover, children with certain learning disabilities may have an issue with the e-learning experience because they may not be performing as well at home by themselves as opposed to being in class with an instructor or potentially with a teacher's aide, anything of that nature, and that can create some negative thoughts for that student, which in turn could deter them from partaking in this program. Excelling children, on the other hand, may prioritize the classwork and school over their own health, and that is just as bad as a student that may not want to participate in the classroom e-learning experience because both will develop a stressor at some point and they will need to find a way to cope with that stress, and these things can lead to binge eating, extensive periods of watching TV or inactivity, and that's just not acceptable for these kids. And this is where the program will come into play. There are a few things that we aim to do in this program, which would include informing the students about all the effects of the coronavirus and quarantine lifestyle. So if a student or child comes into contact with the coronavirus, what to do in that situation, how to go about it, and then also the effects of just being inactive or being at home for that extensive period of time. This would include educating the students on the transmission pathways like we discussed earlier, and also the preventative measures that they can take before they even get the symptoms if the symptoms are mild, or in the event that the symptoms have already occurred and it's becoming more severe. The program also looks to institute a consistent schedule for the students as if they've never left the classroom. By instituting the schedule, not only does this program force the student to be prepared for the classroom learning experience, but it also forces the student to be prepared for any of the program activities that it has planned. The program strives to also incorporate a mental, physical, and health awareness aspect of the program into a student's mind every single day. By doing this frequently for the student, we hope that it encourages them to one day think in depth about their health decision making. And probably one of the biggest aims of this entire educational program is to make sure that these students achieve the healthiest lifestyle possible while maintaining the COVID guidelines. As I stated beforehand, we don't know how long this remote learning or e-learning style of the classroom is going to continue, so we have to do our best to be able to let these kids achieve the healthiest lifestyle possible while being safe and away from the exposures. And the aims of the program are also reinforced by some of the intervention goals that we have in the back of our minds with every student. A primary intervention goal for this educational program is for the children to understand the full spectrum of the coronavirus. We say this respectfully because most children do not understand anything with the coronavirus, any of the pathways of transmission, any of the preventative measures, or things of that nature, because they are relying on their parents' information and their parents' guidance to inform them what's best for them. And that just is not acceptable, and we need to understand that children should be capable of learning these things. A secondary goal of the intervention within this educational program is to show the students that these health practices are serious and they need to be taken as a necessity and not as a hobby. Most students and most children, as is, when they are on summer break, they will do nothing. And we don't want that extended summer break feeling for these students now that they are home and e-learning all the time to just take it upon themselves to do nothing for an extended period of time, more so than what they were already doing. So by showcasing the importance of these health practices, we hope that the students can eventually incorporate exercise, mental health screening, and even corona and other virus symptom screening in the future, which leads to the tertiary goal of the intervention within the educational program is so that the children are able to make all health conscious decisions for themselves and be able to utilize as little of their parents' guidance as possible. The program understands that a child may need to ask their parents for a certain opinion, but over time, through progression of this program, we hope that the child can eventually start to see things for themselves and not utilize their parents as much. By teaching these students independence as early as possible, as they progress through their later years in schooling, they will be able to do things much more efficient on their own and feel more competent doing so. Now, these aims and goals may sound good, but you may be thinking, how are these methods going to work inside of an e-learning educational program? The answer to this is quite simple. The program will utilize a lot of the e-learning aspects and try to implement them into their own form of a web page. From this web page, students are able to plug in information such as their address, age, weight, height, things of that nature that the program can use for vital information to create a goal for these students. Students will also utilize this webpage to answer questionnaires about themselves, their exercise routines, actually look at those exercise programs that are posted on the webpage, track their diet on a daily basis, and many more health screening procedures for mental health and coronavirus awareness. With these components in play, this allows a student to modify their daily routine so that it can solidify their schedule to partake in the program for the educational experience, but also being able to ensure that their lifestyle is changing for the better. Now, the implementation side is a little bit different. Since the students are at home and not in the actual classroom, they're not able to perform the physical education needs that the course is required to fulfill. So, that is where we come in. The program itself takes the place of that physical education course. With that being said, though, students will be required to participate in this program as a means to fulfill their physical education requirements. However, this will only be on a weekly basis, 5 times throughout the week, so a normal school week, so they get that consistent 5 days of exercise that they would be getting with a normal gym class. Also, they will only need to do it once per day like the gym class, so they're not going above and beyond to get that extra exercise in. Because typically a child or person needs about 75 to 150 minutes of exercise per week, depending on the type of intensity that they like to perform it in, that is when the exercise program comes in with the educational program so that the students are getting at least 75 minutes to 150 minutes of moderate to pure intense workouts every single week. The only thing that will be a little bit different where the students will have to get used to are the daily reports. Now, on the webpage, there will be a log that students can track their diet in. They're not needing to count any calories, macronutrients, things of that nature. All they will need to do is just plug in the food, and some specialists at the school will do that for them, primarily the physical education teacher, and that is where the goal setting will come in. On top of that, the daily health screenings for their mental and internal health awareness will be another huge component that they will have to get used to, just being able to detect any symptoms of COVID-19, or if they're feeling a little bit down, certain mental ailments that they see within a given day or any given school week, they are able to log that in the webpage as well. On top of all of this, all the students will have to do a weekly discussion with all of their instructors, not just the physical education instructors, but their classroom instructors, just to see how they're performing in the classroom with e-learning, and some of the counselors at school if they are present. So before I move on to some of the strategies of the program, I'd like to take you through a typical day of the scheduling with the program. So students will wake up about 2 hours before the e-learning experience begins. This is where the real action takes place. So upon waking up, a student will immediately start taking the health screening of COVID-19 very serious, checking for any symptoms that I discussed earlier in the presentation, or certain negative thoughts of the previous day or any stressors that they have given the circumstances of being at home. After completing the health screening aspect of the program, the student will immediately open their webpage to pull up their exercise routine. As I stated beforehand, the student will need about 75 to 150 minutes of moderate to pure intense workouts every single week. So with that being said, the program took it upon themselves to do at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity per day with each exercise. Now, upon completing the daily exercises, students will now begin a mental cooldown session. The program is very lenient with the activities that are performed for this mental cooldown session as long as they are in a meditative state or a state of flow, whether it's playing video games for a few minutes, listening to music, or even doing meditation itself. And after that little mental cooldown session is over, all the available time before the e-learning experience begins is on the students. So they can relax, they can go shower, they can get any breakfast that they want to, you name it. The program also doesn't want the student to take the diet log so serious that they have to go out of their way and it's an additional stressor. The diet log can be entered in at any point of the day. It just has to be entered at least once any given day. As we start to think about some of the strategies of this education program, at the end of the day, we really just wanted to create an environment that would allow students to become more efficient with their daily school lives. So with e-learning experiences becoming later and later in the day, depending on where you are in the United States, and with extracurriculars and sports being all but canceled, we are trying to create this efficient scheduling for students so that they are able to still achieve that exercise, that interaction that they strive for, but while still maintaining that educational aspect and getting that schoolwork done as needed. So as we create this efficient schedule for students, they seem to be able to fit more and more in their day with less effort as the program continues. Another strategy of the program is we are trying to create a program that is stress relieving and has very minimal impact on the student's mental health. Because let's face it, throughout this given school year, being forced to go from learning in the classroom to living at home and doing your learning from there is a bit stressful for children, especially if they aren't familiar with the online course regimen and things of that nature. So I can see where stressors begin to pile up and pile up as the school year continues. So by relieving these stressors, this can transition the student to having better results overall, not only in the program itself, but in the classroom, at home with the health screening, and other health conscious decisions that they may make. And as a springboard of these results, this can lead to the better mindset, confidence, and overall self-efficacy of a person being increased. By increasing a student's self-efficacy, they will find themselves in a better position to make better health-conscious decisions, better schooling decisions, and overall better decisions in life for themselves and their support groups. Everything in this program that's been discussed today has all been built around two theories, the first of which is the stress and coping theory and how that interacts with the program. The stress and coping theory is a huge component of the student learning experience and is a part of the modern schooling experience. With that being said, every kid at some point will identify a stressor in a certain way, whether it's an influx of homework, certain extracurricular activities, or being forced to stay at home during a pandemic when they want to be in the classroom. Once that stressor has been identified by the student, it will have to continue for a little bit longer just because the program itself is a requirement for the educational experience of that student. So once that primary appraisal sets in, that's when they know that the stressor has been identified. This is a great thing for the students though, because once that stressor has been identified, as they progress through the program, they will note that there are certain resources or certain ways that they can cope with this stressor. So that is a secondary appraisal of this theory. So once the student has found a resource or a way of coping with these stressors, the student will look towards continuing the program as a short-term goal for themselves for not only their learning experience, but also for their health conscious decisions. And as they progress over time, they will try to evolve their goals to be more beneficial in the long run for their support groups and also for their families. And since the stress and coping theory seeks for people to start formulating short-term and long-term goals, this is a huge component for children that they should learn earlier on as a way to get better as a student and as a person as they age and get older. This theory, on the other hand, is a huge component of the program and we think is the biggest component that we should be teaching to our kids, and that is the social cognitive theory. Since the social cognitive theory includes all of the following aspects: self efficacy, behavioral capability, expectations, self control, observational learning, and reinforcement, it is noted that each aspect of this theory can be built into this program. As the program progresses, the children also note that they are progressing as students. They are capable of doing other things. They feel more competent enough to take on other activities. They expect better of themselves. They are able to control themselves from certain activities such as binge eating, watching influx of television, and things of that nature with observational learning. Once this progression is noted by students, you will tend to see a natural surge in confidence between each and every child that's partaking in the program. They feel more confident, they feel competent enough to take on different and bigger things with school. They may take on better assignments for school, they may take on studying to a new role. These things can be noted as a progression for the social cognitive theory, and that is how you know this program is working. Once the student is capable of implementing more activities into their daily routine without hindering their schooling and their program experience, that is how you know that the social cognitive theory has been implemented properly. This will stem far beyond just the educational experience in the future if they keep learning these things earlier on, and it will stem to a new horizon in the future with certain health decisions, business decisions, and as they grow up, other educational decisions. As we approach the end of the discussion for today, I would like to discuss some of the outcomes that the program seeks for all of the children. So, the outcomes that we expect are that when people are regular participants of this program, it will find that they have less stress levels and better performance in the classroom. Another good goal that we would like to see from all of the participants in the program is if they maintained a diet log throughout the entire program, they will have a better sense of judgment on what they can eat at home and what they should do to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And the final outcome that we expect are the students that are participating in the program, they will be able to make better health decisions on any health matter and how it can affect their household or surrounding peers as opposed to students that do not participate regularly at all. And with these closing statements of today's discussion, I would like to talk about the basis of knowledge that we had for the program. So, we used two programs from both the CDC and the World Health Organization, and they allowed us to have our program flourish into new horizons for these students. Despite this success, we feel as though that the areas of these programs that they didn't discuss needed to be edited and implemented into the programs on CDC and the World Health Organization as well. We found that all the notable pros from the literature that we were reading, we did end up discussing in the program, such as the desire for kids to exercise regularly, the push for kids to continue a social life within the COVID guidelines, the consistent checkups to ensure students are not suffering from stress, anxiety, or other mental illnesses, and the need for the healthy practices and preventative measures of COVID. On the other hand, the notable cons of the programs that we were reading in the literature included the following, such as dependence on parental guidance way too often, awareness of the world that they did not have, and the need for a strong parental figure for the child to maintain a healthy lifestyle given the circumstances. Despite both the pros and cons adding a huge emphasis towards our educational program, improvements for both pieces of literature are capable of being done. These articles should strive to make kids more dependable on themselves, utilizing less of their parental guidance and their parental information, and be able to give them more helpful exercises as opposed to the typical dance break or going outside for a walk style of exercise. These are just a few of many recommendations and implications that could happen with some of these programs of the CDC and World Health Organization, but these were just many that I felt that were capable of being redone properly to allow the students and children of the United States to get a better sense of working out and health screening awareness. And finally, here are my references for this project. Thank you again for watching, everyone. It really means a lot to me, and congratulations to the class of 2020.